Forget what you know about the invisible fighter jet. For 30 years, we have been told that to survive, you must hide in the shadows. We have been told that stealth is the only god of the sky. We were wrong. While superpowers poured billions into radar-absorbent paint, Sweden quietly engineered a predator that does not hide. It screams. It dares you to lock on, only to shatter your targeting systems with a wall of digital noise. This is the Saab JAS-39 Gripen E. It is not a stealth fighter. It is a digital ghost. And today, we are going to expose the terrifying technology that has NATO commanders asking the most dangerous question in modern aviation. Is the age of stealth over? Welcome to the deep end of aerial warfare. To understand why the Gripen E is a massive game-changer for military strategists, we must first dismantle the biggest misconception of modern aviation. The myth is that invisibility equals invincibility. For 30 years, the doctrine of major powers has been built on the chassis of the stealth fighter like the F-35 Lightning II. The logic was simple. If the radar cannot see you, the missile cannot destroy you. But the battlefield has changed. It has evolved. Physics is a cruel mistress, and she has finally caught up to the stealth fighter. Modern radar systems, utilizing low-frequency bands and network sensor fusion, are beginning to spot the unspottable. The moment a stealth jet is detected, it acts as a slow target with limited payload. This is where the Swedish philosophy diverges sharply from the rest of the world. They asked a different question. Instead of trying to hide from the radar, what if we simply blinded it? The Gripen E is the answer to that question. It is not built to be a passive participant in the sky. It is an active electronic predator. At the heart of this beast is a concept known as Electronic Warfare Supremacy. While an American stealth fighter tries to be a hole in the sky, the Gripen E acts as a mirror, a spotlight, and a decoy all at once. It utilizes a next-generation electronic warfare suite that effectively weaponizes the radio frequency spectrum. When a hostile S-400 battery paints the sky with search waves, the Gripen E does not just deflect them. It captures them. It analyzes the waveform, the pulse repetition frequency, and the source location. Then, faster than a human synapse can fire, it synthesizes a countersignal. This is not just jamming. This is digital ventriloquism. The enemy radar screen lights up not with one target, but with 50. Or perhaps the target appears to be 50 miles to the west of its actual location. The operator on the ground sees a phantom fleet, while the real Gripen slips through the chaos, armed and ready to engage. Let us pop the hood and dig into the engineering that makes this possible, because the hardware inside this jet is not just advanced, it is alien. The secret weapon is the use of Gallium Nitride Technology in its transmitters. This is not your grandfather's silicon. Gallium nitride allows the Gripen to pump out massive amounts of power across a broad range of frequencies without overheating. Think of standard jamming like a garden hose. The Gripen E is a fire hose connected to a hydrant. It creates a localized force field of electromagnetic noise. When a Russian flanker tries to lock on, its sensors are overwhelmed by a wall of pure energy. We are talking about an invisible shield, composed of pure signal, that wraps around the airframe. In a dogfight, this changes everything. A pilot in a hostile jet might get a tone, a lock, and fire a heat-seeking missile. But the Gripen sensors have already seen the launch. The electronic warfare suite automatically directs a focused beam of energy into the seeker head of the missile, blinding it instantly. The missile drifts harmlessly into the stratosphere, while the Gripen pilot aggressively maneuvers for the takedown. But the lethality of the Gripen E goes beyond its jammers. We need to talk about the digital brain. In most fighter jets, the radar, the infrared search and track, and the warning receivers are separate systems that shout for the pilot's attention. The Gripen E replaces this cacophony with a symphony. It uses a centralized, artificial intelligence-assisted sensor fusion architecture. Imagine playing a video game where you have a cheat code that shows you exactly where every enemy is, what weapon they are holding, and the exact probability of their next move. That is what the pilot sees on the massive, panoramic wide-area display in the cockpit. The jet takes terabytes of data from the battle space and simplifies it into actionable intelligence. It does not tell the pilot there is a radar spike at 2 o'clock. It tells the pilot that there is a hostile surface-to-air missile battery powering up, it is 20 seconds from firing, and suggests a specific banking maneuver to break the lock while queuing a Meteor Missile for a counterstrike. This is the difference between fighting hard and fighting smart. But while the missiles are deadly, the feature that actually terrifies the Pentagon is not a weapon you can fire. It is a software philosophy that threatens the American monopoly on war. This brings us to the strategic nightmare known as the App Store model. The global arms market is dominated by the concept of the black box. When a nation buys a fighter from a superpower, they are often buying a locked system. You cannot see the source code. You cannot integrate your own weapons without permission. You are tethered to the diplomatic whims of the seller. The Gripen E shatters this chain of command. Sweden has designed the aircraft with a revolutionary Split-Avionics architecture. The flight-critical systems, the software that keeps the plane from falling out of the sky, are locked in a secure vault. But the mission systems, the tactical apps that control weapons and sensors, are open. This means a country can buy a Gripen E and install their own domestic missiles, their own communication protocols, and their own electronic warfare libraries. For a nation that wants to remain neutral, or a nation that fears its supply of spare parts might be cut off by a political sanction, this is the ultimate trump card. It offers sovereignty in a box. A user of the Gripen E does not need to call Washington or the Kremlin to ask for permission to update their radar frequencies. They can do it themselves, on a laptop, in a hangar, in the middle of the night. This capability allows smaller nations to punch well above their weight class. It creates a scenario where a localized air force, equipped with Gripen ES, can deny airspace to a superpower carrier strike group. The superpower relies on known threat libraries. They know what a MiG sounds like electronically. They know what an F-16 looks like on radar. But a Gripen E running custom, homebrewed electronic warfare algorithms. That is a ghost. That is an anomaly. And in combat, anomalies get people eliminated. Let us run the killchain simulation to see how this plays out in the real world. Picture a contested border zone in Northern Europe. Tensions are high. A flight of hostile Su-57 Felon stealth fighters crosses the line, confident in their invisibility. Their mission is to blind and dismantle the air defense network. On paper, they are ghosts. But waiting in the cold, thin air at 30,000 feet is a pair of Gripen ES. The stealth fighters are quiet, their radars off to avoid detection. But the Gripens are not looking for radar waves. The pilot keeps his radar off. He does not need it. He activates the Skyward-G infrared search and track system. This is a passive sensor, an eye that sees heat. Even a stealth jet has an engine. Even a stealth jet creates friction with the air. The Gripen sensor picks up the thermal signature of the intruders from 60 miles away. The Su-57 pilots have no idea they are being tracked. The Gripen E pilots do not turn on their radars. That would give them away. Instead, they share the targeting data between them via a high-speed, directional data link that is virtually impossible to jam. They maneuver into the blind spots of the intruders. Then, and only then, do they authorize the engagement. The Meteor Missile disconnects. This is a ramjet-powered monster with a no-escape zone 3 times larger than standard missiles. Fox 3. The missile screams off the rail. The stealth fighters finally get a warning, but it is too late. The missiles are already terminal. As the hostile formation breaks in panic, the Gripens activate their electronic warfare suites. The sky fills with noise. The hostile pilots cannot talk to each other. Their radar screens turn into snow. They are blind, deaf, and being hunted by an enemy they never saw coming. This is not a dogfight. It is a total tactical overmatch. It proves that you do not need to be invisible to win. You just need to be the one who controls the information. The engine that powers this capability is often overlooked, but it is the beating heart of the machine. The General Electric F414 engine is a marvel of American engineering, licensed and adapted for this Swedish predator. It provides 22,000 pounds of thrust. But more importantly, it provides the massive electrical generation capacity needed to run the ravenous electronic warfare systems. Electronic attack is energy intensive. You are essentially turning the aircraft into a flying microwave oven directed at the enemy. The engine breathes ice-cold air, hiding its heat signature like a needle in a haystack, while its turbines spin at tens of thousands of revolutions per minute to generate the kilowatts necessary to fry an enemy radar. The feeling of the afterburner kicking in on a Gripen E is violent and immediate. It is a shove into the seat that forces the air from your lungs, propelling the jet to Mach 2. But unlike the brute force of the Cold War jets, this speed is controlled by a fly-by-wire system so precise it makes the aircraft feel like an extension of the pilot's nervous system. We must also consider the road not taken regarding cost and logistics. In a long, drawn-out conflict, the complexity of a fighter jet becomes its Achilles heel. Stealth coatings are fragile. They require climate-controlled hangars and teams of scientists to maintain. If you scratch the paint on a fifth-generation fighter, it might as well be a school bus on radar. The Gripen E is built for the grim reality of total war. It is designed to be serviced by a team of conscripts, teenagers with 6 weeks of training, on a snowy stretch of highway in the middle of a forest. It can take off from a road base only 800 meters long, refuel, rearm, and be back in the fight in under 10 minutes. While the enemy's stealth fleet is grounded waiting for software patches or specialized parts, the Gripen is generating sorties. In strategic simulations, sortie generation rate is often the deciding factor. It does not matter how advanced your jet is if it is sitting on the ground. The Gripen E embodies the philosophy that the best weapon is the one that is actually in the air. This operational independence is why the jet is being eyed by nations like Brazil, Thailand, and potentially others who are tired of the binary choice between East and West. When Brazil integrated the Gripen into its air force, there were reports of simulated engagements where the Gripens performed vanishing acts that left veteran pilots baffled. These narratives suggest that the electronic warfare capabilities are even more potent than the brochures admit. There is a strong suspicion among defense analysts that the claimed capabilities of the Gripen E are merely the tip of the iceberg. The Swedes have a history of underpromising and over-delivering. It is highly likely that the deep-level electronic attack modes are classified at the highest levels, reserved for a worst-case scenario where Sweden or its allies face an existential threat. The psychological impact of this aircraft cannot be overstated. Air superiority is a game of confidence. If a pilot believes their aircraft is superior, they fly with aggression. If they doubt their machine, they hesitate. The Gripen E acts as a psychological weapon against the enemy. Knowing that your radar might be lying to you, knowing that the target you see might be a ghost, introduces a lag in the decision-making loop. In aerial combat, hesitation is fatal. The Gripen E forces the enemy to second-guess every sensor reading. It forces them to fight with one eye closed. As we look at the geopolitical map, we see the Gripen E positioning itself as the ultimate asymmetric counter. It is the slingshot for the Davids of the world to use against the Goliaths. It suggests that the future of air power is not about who has the biggest budget or the darkest stealth paint. It is about who can dominate the electromagnetic spectrum. It is about who can process data faster. It is about who can turn the enemy's reliance on technology into their greatest weakness. The Gripen E is a physical manifestation of the idea that intelligence beats brute force. We are witnessing the dawn of a new era. The age of stealth is plateauing, the age of electronic supremacy is ascending. The wars of tomorrow will be fought with frequencies, algorithms, and milliseconds. The missiles will be guided by artificial intelligence, and the defense will be an invisible wall of jamming energy. In this chaotic, high-tech future, the Gripen E stands ready. It is a fighter that does not need to hide in the dark, because it brings its own darkness to the fight. It blinds the watchers. It silences the commanders. It dominates the air not by bulk, but by brilliance. This analysis forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about air combat. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and understand the military technology that is actually shaping the balance of global power, you know what to do. Like this video, comment with your thoughts on whether electronic warfare has made stealth obsolete, and subscribe to AirDom. We decode the strategy so you can understand the stakes. See you in the next mission.